This is a very special episode of London Love Stories with Katie Strick for Valentine's Day with none other than the Mayor of London himself, Sadiq Khan. Sadiq, thank you so much for coming on today.
It's a pleasure.
Really excited to have you.
Me too.
And there's so much I want to ask you about your love story with London, but before I ask you about how you view London now, I would love to take you right back to the beginning and ask you what your earliest memories are of London.
Oh, so I've still got vivid memories of, I come from a big family. I've got 6 brothers, a sister, mum, dad, and we used to live on a council estate in Tooting, Wandsworth, Henry Prince Estate. And my dad, I don't talk about this much, was a bus driver. But anyway, my dad was a bus driver and he drove the 44 bus. And the route of the 44 bus was along the main road outside the estate. And I've got fond memories of 2 of my brothers and myself being on the top deck of the bus. So if you think about the front of the bus, double-decker bus, my dad would be below. In those days, there was no CCTV cameras, so the way a bus driver would see what's happening on the top was a periscope with a mirror. You'd look up as a bus driver, and there'd be a mirror, and you'd see at the top. And we'd be at the top looking down at my dad while he was driving, and he'd be driving around London, and we'd pretend to be driving at the top. And so I've got fond memories of that with my brothers, having a great time going across our city. But also, I've got memories of going to Trafalgar Square, us climbing on top of the lions. We're quite boisterous as boys, you can imagine, and my sister, and we'd feed the pigeons. And so we've got great memories of being in and around London and being quite comfortable, because being my dad on the buses, then as young boys getting, you get these 60p passes and travel all around London. It's called the Red Bus Rover. And so yeah, fond memories of this great city from a young age.
Back to the people, you're obviously Tooting, London in general, always about the people. Your backstory, your family story has, most people who know you will be familiar with it. The fact that your father was a bus driver, your mother was a seamstress, you had 6 brothers, 1 sister. What does familial love mean to you? Sibling, parental? Tell us about that.
So my mum and dad are incredibly, my father's passed away now, were amazing people. So my grandparents migrated from India to Pakistan after partition in 1947. Really brave. Big sacrifice they made. So if you were Muslim, you tended to move to Pakistan, and if you were Hindu or Sikh, you stayed in India, generally speaking. So they're really courageous people. My parents, incredibly courageous and brave. They travelled 4,000 or 5,000 miles to come to London for a better life for themselves and their families. So they've travelled, I've got 2 generations of Khans travelled thousands of miles. I've gone nowhere, right? So I was born in St George's Hospital in Tooting. We lived on a council estate a mile up the road. My mum now lives a mile up the road this way, and all of us live within a mile, 2 miles radius of our mum. So we've not moved anywhere, all right, compared to 3 generations of Khans. And so firstly, confession, I'm not that bold, courageous Khan of my parents and my grandparents' generation. So my mum has 23 or 24 grandkids and 7, 8 great-grandkids. So my mum's house is crazy at the weekend, and Eid or Christmas is, if you're a Martian and you landed in mum's house, you'd think we're bonkers. I mean, we're like EastEnders on steroids, right? It's like the Queen Vic without the booze, mum's house. So we're a close family.
And speaking about your wife, you live with her now in Tooting. Can you tell us a bit about when and where and how you met? So
my wife and I met when I went to the boys' school, Ernest Bevin Secondary School, which to those that, we didn't feel this way, but others thought it was a really tough, hard school. And Saadiya went to the mixed school, what we thought was the sort of namby-pamby school for the boys that when they were namby-pamby compared to us. That was the view back then. We were teenagers. So we met when I was in 6th form, she was in 6th form, and the thing about her school was there was a head teacher there called Mr. Stapleton. And at lunchtime, Mr. Stapleton would patrol up and down Welham Road to stop the Ernest Bevin boys, going to try and, I use the gentle phrase, court the Graveney girls. And so I managed somehow to, we sort of knew each other, I managed somehow to get around Mr. Stapleton. And so we started getting up, we were in the 6th form, and, fell in love quite young. Married when I was 24 and Saadiya was 23. I was a trainee solicitor. Saadiya was at law school. And I tease people. So when I meet, I'm privileged. I get to, get to meet people who, haven't spent time with somebody from my background, and so I sort of tease them when I say, yeah, we had an arranged marriage. We you know, we when we were very young. And they go, wow, really? Yeah, did you, you know? And then I sort of carry on the story. They say, yeah, we arranged ourselves. Though, yeah, we met when we were very young.
Incredible to meet that young and be together for so long. Talk to me about your love story with Saadiya and some of the places in London that mean the most to you as a couple.
Yeah, so the great thing about London is there is something to do no matter what your wallet or your purse. And so different parts of our life and our life story, we've obviously had, you know, hardly any money, a bit of money, a bit more money and so forth. So there's different things we've done during the last, you know, we've been together since 88. We got married in 94. And so the great thing about London is there are things you can do whatever your budget. So simple example. So Saadiya and I love Lionel Richie. And sort of, you know, it sounds corny, but one of his songs is our song. And we saw Lionel Richie play at Hyde Park. He was the warm-up to Stevie Wonder. And when, you know, Endless Love came on, I obviously sang to my wife, right? And as indeed 3 Times Lady. And then the next day, and so I was singing to Saadiya, the next day there were photographs in the paper saying, you know, Sadiq's courting his wife and stuff. And my daughters were so embarrassed and so mortified. So, yeah, I've got to be romantic in private in case my daughters cringe and get embarrassed.
Can I ask which Lionel Richie song it is that's your song as a couple?
Endless Love.
Endless Love.
Yeah, I can do the Lionel Richie notes pretty well, and she can do the Diana Ross notes pretty well.
I love it. What's your favourite romantic memory from your years in London?
There's a recent one in the last couple of years. So my wife's a massive John Legend fan. I mean, crazy John Legend fan. And so I knew John was going to play at Ronnie Scott's for a small gig for his mates and stuff, and I got wind. And so I thought I'd surprise Saad and take her to Ronnie Scott's and not tell her it's going to be John Legend. And so I got it all sorted out. 2 tickets, John Legend at Ronnie Scott's. And the day of the gig, and I didn't tell her, I said, we're going out for a meal. The day of the gig, Amara, my youngest, was back from university. And so Saad goes, look, Amara's back, I'm staying in. I said, oh God, what do I do? You know, the hassle I've gone to. And so I said, Amara, we've got a problem here, because she's not going to go because you're home. And so Amara said, I'm not feeling well, I'm not going out. And Saad goes, I'll stay at home. I said, oh man, what do you do? So long story short, I managed to get a 3rd ticket for John Legend. And they said, we'll put another chair around the table. So the trick was to get to Ronnie Scott's without her discovering John Legend's playing at Ronnie Scott's in Soho. And so we're walking to the venue, and there's a blackboard with John Legend for one night only, sold out. So I've got to walk in a way to cover the board. So she goes in, it's all working very well. We're sitting around the table, so Amara's here, so I sit and stuff. And the idea was, you know, John Legend comes out, and Saadiya goes, wow, right, that's the idea. And by the way, Chrissy Teigen's over there, so I'm going to hide John Legend's wife, so she doesn't see Chrissy Teigen, because that'll give it away, right? So I'm trying to hide Chrissy Teigen here, right? And then 10 minutes before John Legend comes on, it's worked to a treat, so Amara and I are looking pretty smug. We've surprised her mum, my wife. And the manager comes out and says, oh, Sadiq, I hear you're a big fan of John Legend. I said, oh, no. And then Saadiya, she's obviously very, very happy. She had a great night. But 10 minutes more, it had been the perfect date.
Which is your favourite restaurant in London as a couple?
There's loads we've got fond memories of, you know, in Tooting, in the centre of our city and stuff. And so again, like I said, it depends on your budget. My best friends are friends I went to school with, and they live in and around Tooting. So we catch up regularly every week or 2 weeks. We always go to a local restaurant in Tooting. We try and rotate. Our current favourite is a restaurant called Watan, W-A-T-A-N. And the great thing about Watan, it goes to the Tooting story you were talking about, Katie. It's basically, so recently we've had in Tooting, in the last 10 years, lots of people whose country of origin is Afghanistan because of the unrest in Afghanistan. And so Watan is a fusion of Pakistani food, but also Afghani food. So it's a good example of how the foods in Tooting have evolved and changed over the course of time. But, you know, there's a period of time where, you know, we enjoyed restaurants in the West End, and so we've got some of the finest restaurants in the world, I think, in London. Whether your budget can afford a Michelin star, whether it's fine dining, whether it's, you know, some of the best pizza places and stuff, you know, I genuinely think we've got it all.
And even McDonald's, am I right in thinking you may have wooed Saadiya in McDonald's in Croydon, or is that a vicious rumour?
Well, listen, there are people watching this who may not be able to afford, you know, fine dining we've got and stuff. So my advice is that you know, even
Mm.
Franchises on the high street can be romantic with the right person.
Now, Richard Curtis, when we had him on the podcast, he revealed that when he has been heartbroken and sort of messed around in his past growing up, he would always go to the river to think. That was his thinking place and his unwinding place. Do you have somewhere in London that's the same, that you go to if you're in a spot of bother?
I know Richard very well. He's a friend, and I love him both as the work he does in his film, but also he does a huge amount of work in relation to making sure that we address the challenges of climate change. He's passionate about addressing the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. But if Richard's listening to this or watching this, listen, I'm just a boy speaking to a director saying, please cast me in one of your films. But listen, and actually, I think in Love Actually, there's a scene where I think Liam Neeson's by the River Thames, so I know what Rich is talking about, and I think it may be on the South Bank where Hugh Grant chases after Andy McDowell in Four Weddings. So, yeah, listen, lots of places in London I go to think and unwind. I like running now, and so actually I began running because of the Evening Standard. David Cohen, the campaigning journalist, persuaded me in 2014 to run the marathon to raise money for the Dispossessed Fund, and I fell in love with running as a consequence of doing that. So for me, running really helps. Running around the Commons really helps. But the interesting thing is when you've got a busy life like me, and I understand what Richard is talking about, not necessarily being depressed or unhappy, but you do need to try and find time to just unwind and to just think and to reflect and so forth, and sometimes just to be grateful.
Are there any other moments specifically that come to mind from your career so far as mayor? Just those real examples of non-romantic love and Londoners loving thy neighbour? Oh,
it happens all the time. Listen, I get to meet, as you do in your job, people that the public will never have heard of, that do amazing things and do it because of love. Teachers, I mean, look, I can say this without any equivocation. My teachers loved me. That's why they pushed me, they encouraged me, they opened my eyes to things I'd never thought of. And I know there are teachers who love their children now and really care about their kids. My mum was recently in hospital. She was in hospital for 11 days. Now, I'm not saying all the clinicians loved my mum, but the care she received, it couldn't be because of the remuneration those people get, because it's not adequate in relation to the care she received. I meet every day people who love their jobs or love their work colleagues, and we don't talk about it enough. It's a very British thing. We don't say I love you, right? When was the last time to a work colleague you said I love you, or to your best friend you said I love you and stuff? And but you do, and so I think what I've discovered the older I get, and I think for me the transformation was going from having 6 siblings who were blokes, boys, and a sister, to having 2 children who are both girls/women. And so we now hug all the time. Whether it's when I see my best mates, we hug, or work colleagues I hug, people I haven't seen for a while I hug, because it's a way of showing love without needing to say I love you. And I think Richard Curtis does a great job. I mean, people tease him about it all the time about being soppy and all the rest of it and stuff. But I think it's great. I like happy endings. If I know movies, if I know in advance a movie's not got a happy ending, I'm not sure I'll go and watch it. And so it does make a difference. And I think, bearing in mind all the issues there are with the world, whether it's Ukraine or Gaza or what's happening in other parts of the world, you do need to actually be happy and be positive. And love's one way of doing it.
It's easy to forget to say, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Who is the most inspiring Londoner you've met over your time as mayor?
There's been loads. Bearing in mind when this podcast is coming out and the context of what I've been up to in the recent past, I think one of the most amazing Londoners that I've ever met. She's changed my life actually. It is a woman called Rosamund Adokisi Deborah, and the reason I mention Rosamund and this time of year is Rosamund's 9-year-old daughter Ella lost her life on February the 15th. And so she was 9 years old, and the short version of the long story is she died from asthma, a respiratory attack caused by air pollution. And so there's a direct link because of the work Rosamund's done for her daughter. We now know that air pollution, that you can't see particulate matter, nitrogen oxide, you can't see this stuff, but it makes you sick, to the point where it led to Ella losing her life. Now, anybody who's got family, anybody who's experienced grief will tell you how hard it is. I mean, grief is just so hard. When you're a parent to lose a child, difficult to quantify and to understand what that parent goes through. When you're a parent who's grieving, but then is campaigning, trying to find out cause of death, the level of respect I have is just on a different level. And I think, you know, to paraphrase, I think, you know, the corridors of heaven are going to be lined with campaigning parents. And I think Rosamond is just an amazing Londoner who, you know, still does amazing stuff, even though her daughter's passed. The work she's doing is saving the lives of many, 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 many more. I don't think we can quantify the lives Rosamond's campaigning will save, and she's a Londoner. We should be really proud of her.
I interviewed her a couple of years ago,
Oh,
and
right,
it does stand out in my mind as being one of the most, emotional but incredible. As a father of daughters, that must have, you know, particularly rung true.
Honestly, Katie, so the thing is, I think so. I've always been, you know, ambitious when I was a lawyer. But when you have children, it just changes your mindset. And so your values change. I think you become less. By the way, I'm not saying you can't get here without having kids, so I'm not saying that at all. But you become less selfish in my view. My experience was I became less selfish. I became more grounded. I started thinking about things that I wasn't thinking about before. And without getting too sort of, you know, Richard Curtis about this, you start thinking about what you can leave behind, about, you know, legacy, about what sort of role model you are, about the example you want to set. And it's difficult to explain because most of us, the love we have for our friends, our work colleagues, is conditional, right? You love your best friend because she or he is, there's a relationship. I don't want to say it's transactional, but it's based on the condition of certain behaviour. With your kids, it's unconditional. It's unconditional love you have for your children and stuff. And that's quite scary, but it's quite brilliant as well. And so, you know, I love being a parent. I love being an uncle. I love being a husband and a son. But I think of all the things I am, my favourite is being a dad. But my kids, actually, funny story, my kids, years ago, you know, have sort of now started saying to my mum, for whom English isn't their first language, I love you. And so when we grew up, just a different generation, you know, it wasn't an everyday occurrence. My mum saying, I love you, right? Now it is. And that shows the difference a new generation can have on the behaviour of older generation and stuff. So I talked about my own experience of, you know, having best mates who are blokes, siblings who are blokes, very alpha male environment, to the environment that I've spent the last 24 years in, which is very female environment, and it's changed my behaviour, I think, for the better.
This leads on to one question I ask every guest on London Love Stories, which is a very broad one and potentially a difficult one, but what does love mean to you?
Crikey. I think it's difficult to answer in one word. Look, love means respect. It means treating those you love how you would like to be treated. It means being patient. It means compromise. It can mean, in certain circumstances, obviously passion. It can mean joy, happy. You know, different. You know, so you know, and hopefully, I show my love for people by my actions, not my words. By how I, you know, how I treat people, whether it's my wife, my daughters, my family, my friends, and I include, you know, work colleagues. And you know, one of the things I always say to people is, it's possible to, whatever you're in, whether it's journalism, politics, medicine, law, you can get to the top by being nice to people, by loving people. You know, those that have read, you know, Little Prince, Machiavelli, you know, I'd rather be loved than feared.